for the last stream about her, I thought that we could go through I took some screenshots of like a few things that got me there. Plus, I have the Photoshop file right here. So why not go through it? So yeah, here. So that's what we. That's the final model that was posed. Last time we posed like part of the upper model and everything. Upper body, I mean. And so yeah, basically, this is the finished model pose and everything. I did a little base for her as well, for in case like I'm printing it. Just like the others, they all have a base, right? So there we go. Well, the base is not at maximum resolution. There you go. And yeah, if we look at it from a little bit closer, so you can see this is the exact final mesh from before, simply in the pose that I planned for her. So, yeah, you, c'est beau. Ben, merci beaucoup. So once that I had this character, one of the things that was important was to actually split this model into a couple of different materials. So if you go here in material in ZBrush, and let's just a sec. So you have to hide your HUD, if you click show used, it'll basically like show you all the material that is used on this model. So those are like pretty much all like base material from ZBrush that I used. Like it's nothing special, but throughout the model, I did assign different materials for different parts. Like for example, everything that is green, I knew was going to be painted metal. So I chose a material that kind of looks like painted metal. I also have the gray metal parts, and I have other metal parts that like are a bit darker, and I gave them two different materials. So like for example, like you see, check that out. Like if I just like do colorize diffuse, I'm gonna try to give them like a pretty flashy color. It doesn't really show, eh? Okay, just let's play with high dynamic range. Okay, so you see everything that is like kind of like flashy and red. You can see that it's actually like this metal material here. So like I knew that like I wanted this to be like a darker metal, so I gave it a darker poly paint. But I just wanted to make sure that it also has a different material for KeyShot afterwards. So I did that for a couple of materials. Some part of the orange is the same material as the green here because I knew that they were going to be painted metal anyway. The cloth also is its own material. So basically, like they don't really have like names, but like this one is my painted metal. This one is the cloth. This one is the chromatic part on top of her head. The other reflective one is the lights in the middle. The one that's called metal is the brighter metal. The one that's called Z metal is the darker metal. Silver, I think, is the I think it's the border, like the plastic, the rubber on the borders of the cloth. Soft plastic is something else, whatever, I don't remember, blend and then gloss and blah blah blah, whatever. They all have like different materials. I didn't want to have too much materials, but at least like I wanted to have like differences in reflectance so that I can assign different materials in KeyShot afterwards. So yeah. And if you look at the poly paint only, let's say we go back into render and we just like use flat. This time around, I didn't do like the other characters. The other characters, I actually gave them like a bit of like texture the last time, and I kind of like figured out that I don't really like need it that much. Only like me on maybe like a few parts. Um, like for example, I'll show you. I'll open a picture here. Okay, so if you look at their flat colors, oh wait, I'll put it on the side here. If you look at their flat colors, like you see, I did kind of like texture, like some like edge details, some scratches and everything. But I kind of like figured out that I didn't really need to do that because the materials in KeyShot like already had like curvature detail and cavity detail and that sort of stuff, and it didn't do really that much of a difference, right? So I mean, it could probably make it a little bit better if I was to paint it again in ZBrush before sending it in KeyShot, but I kind of like figured that it would not like make it that much better for the amount of time that it takes, so I just whatever, I didn't do it. The only part that I actually painted was the tip here. I really wanted to have like some kind of like feeling of like weathering on the blade because of the damage and everything. So that I did paint in ZBrush, but the rest are really just a like flat colors. If I felt that I needed to add like some details, I could have actually also just like go back later in ZBrush, add the poly paint, re-import with the new poly paint, and I wouldn't lose my like the materials or anything. So there's some back and forth that's possible. It's a bit of pain in the ass, but it's possible. So yeah, and that's the poly paint, and basically, so you saw me pose the character, and I just added a little bit of texture, not that much, and basically that's where we are since the last time. Bonne soirée, Marco. Hello, where's 3D Art? Yep. So, what now? Well, if you click render here, external render, you have a button that lets you click to to enable it in ZBrush, and you can also like tell him like I actually tend to remove auto merge. Sometimes I leave it, but you have to choose group by materials if you want to use my technique. And basically, the fact that you split it in like these like materials here is going to already divide your meshes and attribute them like the same material in KeyShot. So I actually took screenshots here. So you see like here, like on the left in ZBrush, like each of the materials, like I said, are assigned. You actually enable this, and when you actually like put it in KeyShot, are you going to be in the credit at the end? So what's the plan for tonight? Are we going to be in the credit? Okay, sorry, I didn't read correctly. Maybe, eh? Like some Kickstarter fund, everybody like has their name and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, basically once you actually send it in ZBrush in KeyShot, you'll have like all your materials that are going to be all separated here. Like now you see like I actually have name for them. I named them in KeyShot, and I actually gave them like each the material that has the proper like reflectance and everything. But you see that they were all like still assigned to the same materials here, so it's really a great tool, I find. And like let's say that you want like one material to be disconnected, you can always choose to say like, hey, I want you to be disconnected from the rest and act differently because you like this specific like subtool here needs to actually like be a bit different, and you can then tweak it without tweaking all the rest of the materials in the same way. Well, not the same of the materials, but the same subtools that have this material. So, and you can always like link it back to say like, okay, you know what, just be similar to all the rest now. Thanks for the follow. So basically, that's what it is. Afterwards, there's not really much to say about like the tools in KeyShot. I mean, they're the same since they've been the same for a long time, and I find that they actually work pretty well, just like the base level. So like in the environments, basically the idea is to have a just take whatever HDR that you feel actually have the right like contrast, and you can always like play with their like brightness and contrast here, right? So that's one thing you can do. What I like to do is to actually like go into the HDR editor, and in the HDR editor you can actually add like pin lights, and I actually add them to act like rim lights. So if you look at the character, like, or I should have like pointed at like this little white line here, you see I actually have like some like sharp rim lights. It's basically what I do. And if I was to click on background, you would see that like I actually like played with the brightness and contrast in the background here instead of like in the global settings here. And yeah, so basically it's kind of like it's hard to explain like how it really works, but it's just like tweaking until like the lights are like what you're looking for. I suggest using a reference that you find on the internet of like some render that you appreciate. That's a good thing. And for the background, I actually just basically took like the HDR, like the image of the HDR, the background, but I took a screenshot without the character, and I put it in Photoshop, and I kind of like already chose like the proper contrast. So I kind of like blurred the background, and I tweaked it a little bit so that my background is already what I'm going to be using in Photoshop. Because something that's really important, it's you want your character to feel like it's blending with the background, right? And I find that like I see that pretty often, and and by the way, I really don't consider myself a master at like rendering at all, but like whatever, I have opinions, but I just find like often something that it's kind of like taking me like out of appreciating an image is when like the character doesn't fit with the background or doesn't blend with the lighting and everything. And I find it's like really important, and this is why I tend to always make sure that my background is somewhat relative to um, the lighting that I chose. In that case, it's the exact same scene, so it's kind of like easier to be closer to home, right? But like it's really important to, if you choose like a background that has like the sky is blue and there's like certain like lit light, or maybe like there's sand and stuff, you're really going to want to make sure that like on your character like there's like light absorption that or refraction I should probably say, like that reflects with the colors of your environment. So like if you choose like an HDR that has like a, or if you choose a background that's in the desert and you actually choose an HDR that is maybe doesn't really have the same colors in it, like you're automatically going to create like a disconnect. So like this is a tip that I would really suggest to do. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, in terms of like lighting, there's really nothing special. I just kind of like chose the right brightness and contrast to have like the good like amount of like shadows versus lit area. And like those insectoids characters are pretty like clair obscur, if I can actually say. So like, and what I mean by that is clair obscur, I mean it's like there's a good part of the character that's well lit, and there's like a part that exists in the shadows. I think if I am not mistaken, it's a Rembrandt thing, clair obscur. Yeah, I don't know what's clair obscur in English. I think they're actually using the French term, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, whatever. So yeah, basically that's for the lights, and for the materials here, that's pretty much like the last part that is like important. Um, chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro. It feels. What language is that? Was that Italian? But yeah, it's yeah, chiaro. Chiar, which is probably clear, like clair in French, and oscuro, that's probably obscure, or in French, obscure, right? Italian, yeah, there we go. So, so yeah, and I have to fact check now what I'm saying. Like I've been saying controposo last time, and now I stand corrected. Hmm? um, so basically, so what are you saying? Chiaroscuro? Sorry, I'm not sure. What do you mean? So yeah, basically the idea is that the materials here are pretty much what makes what I find probably like the most important part, right? If you look at it here, those things here. Okay, it's a pronunciation. Okay, all right. Well, thanks for that. Chiaroscuro, or whatever. So yeah, basically, I used a material graph to do this character here, and let's just check like a screenshot of this character, like a little bit close up. First of all, before I actually explain how the materials are done, but so this is the final render with the post-prod and post-production in Photoshop and everything. So yeah, basically there's like a base noise on the texture. There's a bit of like rust and dirt in the shadows in the ambient occlusion, and on the edge you're gonna have like a bit of like edge wearing and such. So you see like some edge wearing. You have like dust in like dust or rust in the cavities. You can actually see the dust here a bit, even here. And so yeah, and like edge damage and that sort of stuff. So it's basically like the same approach as a substance when you think about it, for those that are using Substance Painter. And yeah, also something that is really important is for the painted metal to actually have some like texture on the model. That the texture is actually kind of like an opacity that reveals another material underneath, and this material is like raw steel, basically. So painted metal over raw steel, and this is actually what creates the effect, right? This is the base theory of like what I'm doing here. And every material have like a bit of like that. Now, me, I've tweaked those materials and I'm just reusing them a lot. So the key is actually to experiment on maybe like one asset until you have like a recipe that's good, and then you can reuse it afterwards. And also, I think you have to be careful because the size of the models might actually also affect the results. So you have to actually be careful with that. Are you going to go through your Photoshop workflow? Well, yeah, I'm going to show the Photoshop file, but there's really nothing special, but I'm still going to show it. I love it. I approve the texture. Merci SKR. Venant de toi, ça va en dire beaucoup. Acta 79. Hey, Marco. Hey there. All right. So basically, this is what I got in KeyShot. So if I go back here, well, you have a base material. This base material is basically just the paint metal, and already you see that like in paint metal here, there is something called label 1, and it's actually the metal that is under. So metal under is exposed by a texture and some curvature. You plug it in label 1. So steel metal. This is like the one that's going to go into label 1. And it's actually set in opacity. So the opacity of dose texture is going to reveal the metal on your main material, right? you can see like this one is called yellow, but it's actually just because I did the wasp first. So whatever, I just never changed the name. Like I said, I'm always using my graph. And basically the idea is, oh, thanks for the follow. The idea is that you have like a texture that's here, or that's also another texture. Basically, you have those two textures, and those two textures through like a couple of like adjustment of like contrast and this and inversion and blah blah blah, and color composite to kind of like mix them together, mixed with the curvature texture material here, is going to give you like a mix that's going to reveal the painted metal the way that I did it. For example, like this is an example of like the texture material applied on the model. So, and this is here an example of the curvature. So you see that like the curvature is highlighting the edges, right? And this is pretty much like the combination of this and that through color composite, where you play with contrast and everything. Sorry, color adjustment that like boost contrast or whatever, and color composite that will multiply or screen or overlay the effects together will give you the result that you're looking for. And on top here is pretty much just like the texture itself. So it's a mix of the poly paint. So you see like this is the poly paint that when you bridge from ZBrush to KeyShot, it's going to bring the poly paint of your character here. And so you see like the poly paint is just a flat green, except for like the claw, not the claw, but the, yeah, I guess it's a claw, whatever, like our weapon parts that actually like I added like some weathering on top. And actually, you know what? So you can see that like the texture that I drew here, I was able to actually like tell him like, okay, well, the gray part of this claw act like a mask that will reveal what is under. So you can see like the raw metal over the painted metal here. But otherwise, yeah, the poly paint is basically the base texture here. Thanks for the follow. And here I have like an occlusion material to add like the little bit of like dust. So you see like this is the AO, and basically you can just color it some beige or whatever, orange, and add it in the screen or in multiply over your base texture here. And also this texture here was multiplied. I don't remember where it is. Oh yeah, no. Actually, you know what? That material here is like the black parts, so it won't show in this image, but basically like any texture that you add, you can also plug it like in your diffuse. It can act like in many places at the same time. But yeah, so AO added to the texture will just give like this like added like dust to it. This texture can also be added to the diffuse to act like if it's actually dirty. And then for like all the weathering, so that's something that's exposing what is raw under, yeah, you add it like as a different material in opacity in label 1. So this is basically like the materials, how they work. It's pretty simple in a sense. It's just a matter of like experimenting with it to get the right effect, and which leads to, yeah, once again, this result here, which I'm happy. I'm happy with that. It's not the best render, but it's cool. I mean, you can see like here the metal, the way that it's actually acting. It's really like shining the raw metal under the paint metal. Whereas like in some other area where it doesn't catch the light, you can see that like the steel is actually dark. But in the light highlights, you can see that it's actually like the specularity of the steel. And by the way, when I add a material like this, I usually just take any base material that KeyShot offers. Like they have paint metals, they have steel. You also have like some like damaged steel and stuff, but like I find that the base material of KeyShot, they often don't give you like a nice result. You kind of like have to calibrate it So you have to use your eye and your judgment to feel like they have the right specular or the right amount of like damage. Plus, like I said, if they have like a texture in it, you actually have to find the right scale, because depending on the size of your model, the scale might be really off, and you might not have the texture properly scaled on your materials from the get-go. Let's read the chat a little bit. Alden, hey Marco, how are you? Pretty good, thank you. I hope you're doing well. First time chat. Cable B. Well, look who we have here. Feels amazing, man. That's me. Feels amazing, man. Wow, Cable following me around. Okay, no, I get it. Sorry. You guys can continue to have your conversation. Escara, did you try other color combination or did you go straight to the green? Well, because I actually had the base idea from the beginning that it was going to be a praying mantis, I just basically used the color combination of the praying mantis, and I tested the color schemes while I was doing the blocking in Photoshop. In ZBrush. So from the get-go, I knew like pretty much the colors I was going to use. It was just a color breakup that I kind of like played with a little bit. When I did the wasp, I did more experimenting, but for her, I was pretty confident with my choice since the beginning. Just mind blown by this thing. Well, thanks, Adam. It's appreciated. So yeah, I'll go through a couple of images, and then I'll show the Photoshop. Is it only sculpt or also rigged? No, it's just a sculpt. It's basically done like if I was going to print it as a 3D print. Like it could be printed. Where's my file? All right, we got it here. Yeah, see, I rendered like a little turntable to kind of like so if it was printed, that's what it would look like. This is my little like mock-up, just to give an idea. I saw this render on a Twitch thumbnail recommendation and dropped that follow faster than my mom dropped me when I was 2 years. I appreciate that. That's fucking great, man. Alright, thanks, Cable B. I suppose. Thanks, Blueco. Much appreciated. Whoa, nice. Thanks. Nice joke, yeah. That story sounds like we're twins. This is that's good. All right. I love to learn new things about people. That's great. The kind of stuff I'm gonna like talk to my mom and she's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I dropped you a couple of times when you were 2 years old." So yeah, great, perfect. Anyway, so yeah, that's a like turntable I did. Just once again, just like a KeyShot a preset that I have, like that kind of like looks like what it would be. I started learning V-Ray, but this KeyShot workflow is looking super neat. Might have to learn it as well. Well, I mean, Veer is pretty good. Like, I'm not going to say that there's a render that's like better than another one. Like, I pretty much like went for KeyShot because at some point one of my friends was using it. I found that it was kind of like easy and like resonated with my sensibilities. But like everybody have like different like ones. Like I think that Cedric is using Corona, if I'm not mistaken. Like there's so many. And like I said, sometimes I will even like render in ZBrush actually. Like I might actually show like a bit of a ZBrush render afterwards. Will any of this stuff run real time? Well, it could. It could if I was to retopo it and all of that. So it could, but it's not. Like I'm not going to go there. Yeah. So yeah, this is a this was one of my turntable. So I have a couple of like renders here. I just chose a couple of like pose angles that would actually like look good. Some framing. Hey, thanks for the follow. Like for example, like I always try to have like a wallpaper size, then a kind of like something that is more fitting to the size of the character, then a 16 by 9 that is a bit of a close up, and then a 4 by 5. Also, like I always try to have like those four formats of like images, and it kind of like offers like close ups for like people that want to see it like closer. You see the same for all those poses. I usually try to have like between 3 to 6 poses as well, depending on if there's like a couple of good angles. For her, I found a couple of like angles that I liked, so I rendered a couple of them. This is a good one. I like this this angle. This the viewer, the software viewer I'm using to view these images are making the images a bit darker than in Photoshop though. So I don't know how they show on your screen, but like they're a bit dark on mine. In Photoshop, it's a bit brighter. So yeah, there's a couple of good angles. Like because of her pose and everything, like I didn't take just like one back view. Like I found that like there was a couple of like nice like gesture from the back as well. So yeah. Plus like with like the double arms and everything. So and of course the booty. Not gonna dance around it. Or will I dance around it? So yeah, those are like the angles that I took. I can show in Photoshop what it looks like. Did you model in pose already? Or let me just open that. Did you modeled in pose already? Or first you made it in T-pose and then moved the arm around? Well, if you look at the previous streams that I did on YouTube, you'll find the answer. I'll explain it, but basically, like the link, if you go down here in the Chaos Mason link, or in my link here, if you go on YouTube, you'll see there's like a full playlist of like this character from blocking to finish. So yeah, basically what I did is I did it in T-pose, and I posed the character afterwards, and I resculpted what I needed to resculpt after the pose, like some of the clothing maybe or whatever, in areas that are flexing and whatnot. I also modified a few things because of the arm position, there was like some interpenetration in some areas, and I just simply like modified the design to allow for this. Would be nice to see her in an attack pose using those blades. Yes, correct. my insectoids, I always give them a very like museum pose, if I can say. But some characters, sometimes I like pose them more aggressively. But for these characters, I just because I want to have the lineup of the insectoids, I'll have like the same kind of like feel to them. Like I gave them like all like a stern like feeling to them basically. But like yeah, in attack, she could be pretty badass for sure. First time chat. That is so amazing. Thanks, Christopher. Render 100% straight out of ZBrush without any Photoshop magic, like we had to do in the last ZBrush Summit, was special experience. Yeah, yeah. No, it needs a bit of tweaking just to have the atmosphere and everything. Like when things are coming out of ZBrush, it's pretty raw. It's great for visualization, like readability of like the sculpt. So like that, I find it's pretty great. But like, nah, I need some zhuzh. Especially because like if you actually have rim lights, the rim lights, they don't really add on top of the render correctly. Like I'll actually show that. That's also the ZBrush renders for her, and I actually always render the rim lights separately. All right. So you see, like this is going to be the ZBrush render for her. So it's a pretty reflective material from the beginning. But if you look at how this is built, so all right. So if I dissect, this is pretty much the render straight out of ZBrush without the rim lights. And so we'll watch the playlist for sure. I will devour that thing like wait, my ducks. Wow, I keep learning about your life, and I'm more and more interested. How long did it take? A month? Well, I mean, cumulatively, in terms of hours, it's about 1 to 2 weeks of work on Mantis, but it took me, well, streaming it, like it took me a lot of time. Like I started in mid-December, I think. So let's say, well, I mean, there was like the holiday and everything. So let's say I started at the beginning of this year. So in terms of like doing this character on stream, took me a while. Have you used the ZBrush to Photoshop plugin? Yes. No, I did not. No, it's just I rendered the passes and opened them in Photoshop. Mantis have a lot of environmental camouflage skills. Yeah, they do. They do. I'm not sure that I would make her like the. Well, she's kind of like the sneak attacker of the group. Like if I am to like talk about like who they are, I keep changing subject. I'm gonna have to commit to one thing. Like if you look at like who they are, I always try to think of my characters like they have like different skills. Like for example, like if I was to like choose them in a video game, like I feel like they need to have like different skills. Like you need to have your DPS, your tank, your like healer, your rogue, like that sort of stuff. Basically, like very Dungeon and Dragon-esque. So if I look at like these 4 characters here, like the Wasp is of course like the DPS character. So it's the really like the savage attacker. Mantis would probably be the sneak one. But then again, not so sure, because maybe if I was to do like a fully sneak character, it would be maybe like smaller, darker. I don't know. Like she's jungle sneaky maybe. But she does have like some agility, right? So she would fit more like in the category of rogue because of agility and the fact that mantis are like a well camouflaged insect. So maybe she would have the like the module to make her like kind of like invisible a little bit. So that would be like her skills and stuff. The beetle, of course, is the tank. So he's basically just slow, high damage, very slow, but extremely high defense. Long range as well, since he has the guns here on his arms. and the mosquito is basically, it's more like the status afflictor, if I can use this term. So basically, it's just like giving poison to people. So he's actually like pretty fast, super fast, as like actually, like he has like the huge jets in his wings at the back. So he's basically just like fast, and like if he actually like stings you with his darts, well, you're already like poisoned or whatever the equivalent for robots. Also, it doesn't show in this image, but he has like a tank at the back with like more of that green stuff. So yeah, I like to actually like have them in lineup and kind of like think of like, ooh, what each of them would be. So yeah, 1 to 2 weeks of work. Switch to Owen Wilson voice. Wow. She seems like the swift attacker or assassin, deployable hand blade. Yeah, exactly. Forearm seems like it would provide lots of speed attacks too. Yeah, exactly. So agility, that sort of stuff. Archer. Yeah, well, some like I could create like a truly long range character, like a sniper, basically. The Beetle has the guns, but it's not really like it's. I see it more as like shotgun more than anything, like punching and like activating like the beam at the same time, something like that. Cool team. Well, thanks. Debuffer are the best. I bet someone will pick Mantis and build her like a tank, and it would work in the current meta. Yeah. Yeah, you can do a lot. Yeah, so there you go. So yeah, just to go back to here. So you have like this base material, and this is like super simple. The when I go into ZBrush and I render, it's always like extremely simple. Like you can turn off the poly paint. You choose like something reflectance, like a shade of gray that fits all right. And so here we go. You activate occlusion. Occlusion, I almost leave it to what it is. I just choose like 0.6 here. So it's not too dark. 2 of blur, because otherwise it's too slow. 1 of blur for the shadow angle. Something like 45 or 55 I found is a sweet spot. Ray amount is, I find that 88 is a good sweet spot. I sometimes go up to like 120 if I feel that like it's a bit jagged. The shadows, I mean, or like sometimes I even go down to like 44, 55 if I want to go like faster. Resolution, you try to have something that's close to your document resolution. My document resolution for these were like 5,000, so you can basically just say like 5,000. But I didn't feel like it changed like that much, to be honest. But it's good practice. That's a good practice, I heard. And yeah, that's it. Like I would render like this, and the render are pretty fast. Like if I render just this like this, so you see, it's pretty quick. And like when it reaches halfway here, it's just like the entire aliasing, and it goes super fast. So like we're pretty much already like 1/3 of the way done. That's it. So those are my ZBrush renders. And once you have them, you export your diffuse, AO, and shadow. So when I had the AO and the shadow, you see it doesn't really change much. It's just because I felt that they actually needed a certain boost. Sometimes I will not even use shadow and AO. And then you have the rim lights here. So how are the rim lights done? It's pretty simple. You basically go in here, and you can just like recreate the same light as your main light, but I will just use the main light. And the way you do it is you just like move it, because you see like the light, normally I render it like this. It's like a bit high and a bit to the right, and that's been pretty much my main shot. And for the rim light, you basically just click on the light once, then it goes in rim lights, and you install it on the side. You try to have like a bit of light on the side here. You can change your background for black in order to visualize it better. All right, and I mean, because it's gonna, when you render, it's gonna add shadows, right? So you have to take in consideration it's like you're gonna get only really like the part of the light that is not occluded by shadow. But basically you actually like boost it to double almost. And when you're gonna render it, you can render it with less rays because it's just the rim light. You can remove also the AO. It's not really useful anymore for the rim light. So you see we're gonna render, it's gonna go super fast. I'm gonna wait for this one to show you the result. May I please ask how you approach the color scheme? Well, like I said, I just pretty much picked up an image of a praying mantis and I followed it. And tried to have like some analogous colors or complementary colors depending on what direction that I go. I don't feel like there was like much magic to this one. So you see, basically, I chose like images like this where actually I let nature tell me like what are the colors. Nature's never wrong. So like you can see like from this image that like she has like the orange claws. The rest is like this tint of green. I played with the tint like how I see fit for sure. And on top of that, I also added like maybe like some tertiary colors. Like in that case, it's more like a blue for like the rims of the clothing. But yeah, it's pretty much like just that I did. So yeah, you see you have the rim lights here. So you see it's kind of like it's not going too far, but like you still have it like on the side. It's gonna cut the silhouette pretty well. So this is probably like good enough for like the rim light. So I would render this. I would render the other side, and it pretty much give you this. Oops. So these are like the two rim lights. So you see this is like one of them. I basically just added like some color and played with like the intensity. What mode is it in? Linear dodge add. I find that this is like the best one for rim lights. The other side, which is blue, both of them together, and this is with everything else. So we have this, and sometimes like some areas, because the light is higher, if like the head is bending down, the head gets pretty dark. So sometimes I'm gonna have like an overlay layer just to lighten the face a little bit more. And yeah, it's pretty much that's pretty much it for the ZBrush renders. Oh yeah, also there's like a layer of like leveling that I added afterwards. So this is for the ZBrush render. Are you using any plugin to get that cool ZBrush render? Well, no, well, I just showed it, so yeah. That's very like vanilla what I'm doing. Usually I pick like one main color for the character type, like blue for Cryomancers, orange for Pyros, but the rest of the color is where I struggle. Well, you see, in that case, like yeah, like often I'll use like a main color that represents well what I'm working on. Let's use another. Let me find another image. having a hard time. Oh yeah, I could maybe I can use this. If I use the horse, one of my death horseman here. So basically, this one is like pretty monochromatic in a sense, but the idea is like, okay, well, the main color for this one is black, and then I was like, okay, well, I want each of my horsemen to have a different like accent color. For the other ones, it was simpler because like in the Bible, it's actually written that they have like different colors. Like for famine, it's blue, so you still have like this like base of black, but like with like the hints of blue here. For pestilence, it's black and green, even if it's really toned down. Like green is the accent color, and for war, it's of course it's red. And for death, I was like, okay, well, death is like I was thinking of like death is basically like pale. It's like white, but I didn't really like this like idea. Plus, like, there's no metal that is white, except if it's paint metal. But anyways, so it's more like the horse that is more like a pale-ish. But for him, I just gave him like the gold. I found that it was like a good mix to have black and gold. But then those were like, so you have like the main that is black, then you have the accent that is gold, but I wanted to have like another kind of like smaller accent color. So maybe I should say that the gold is secondary, and then there would be the accent color. The accent color for this one is orange. It's really just the color that felt that actually like fit the most, and it's just a version of gold, but like less saturated, less metallic. So it's very like monochromatic in that sense. So you can either go like monochromatic, or you can go analogous, or you can go um, complementary is a like an easy answer. To go back to talking about complementary, like for example, for this character here, so I had green. So orange is it's not complementary to green because red is complementary to green, but like it's close. It's close to there. I found that it actually like fit pretty well. Um, so basically, like complementary colors is it's pretty simple. It's just like the color that is at the other end of the spectrum. So green and red, blue and orange, I think yellow and purple, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, and then analogous colors are basically like colors that are one next to the other. So like blue and green, they're analogous because they share like a common thing. And this is why, like for example, like the straps or like these straps here, I decided to go for blue because blue is the complementary of green, and it's also the blue is the analogous of green. It's the complementary of orange. I hope I'm not making any mistakes right now in this theory. Like this is a like old theory, like for me that like. But anyways, I felt like it actually worked well. But the true answer is that I kind of like went really with my eye more than anything. So like for this character was also with my eye. So yeah, very monochromatic for this one. Oops. For this one here, it's more like analogous because you have the red, you have the orange. Well, it's more like brass, like for the rims and everything. But you see, like it's very like analogous with the creature that has like the purple and everything. A lot of like analogous colors. Um, this one is where like you get the complementary colors, like blue complementary to orange. Once again, it's more like brass, but whatever. Um, and like other choices like the gloves brown, just because like I didn't want to create like a contrast, so I didn't use a complementary color. I just used the analogous color. And when I wanted like accents, like things that are a bit more flashy to really read well those little cables, then I use the complementary, because complementary will really like be striking because it's the opposite, right? So it really depends on like if you want to attract attention and stuff. Well, complementary attracts a lot of attention. Analogous is more sneaky, right? So, and I really love monochromatic also. Thanks for the follow. Like this is something that I appreciate a lot. So yeah. And for her, it's well, orange and green. So yeah, I don't know if I hope that this actually explains a little bit of my choices. How many 3090s Ti do I have to steal to render in a document size of 5K? Oh, it doesn't take the GPU. ZBrush doesn't take GPU, it's only CPU, so you don't need a good graphic card. Kevin 3D Art. What's up, Marco? Hello, hello. Oh, I see. Thank you so much. No problem. Show more of references for the Mantis, please. Uh, well, there weren't much references. I just used like the same like technique that I use for my wasp. So it's just a rinse and repeat of my own. By the way, thanks for the follow. It's just a rinse and repeat of my technique. Like the insectoid series is the most raw. Thanks for the follow. Is the most raw, my most raw style. Like sometimes I'll do a style and I'll try something new or whatever. And the insectoid, it's kind of like free writing where you just like write whatever comes in your head. Well, um, for me, the insectoid is basically that. So like the reality is that I didn't really use any reference, or my reference were the other insectoids. And for the colors or for the proportions, I just used, like I said, a praying mantis, like a real nature praying mantis. So the reason why like she has like so much like thick thighs is because the praying mantis has this like long, thick abdomen at the back, and I just used that shape to yeah. I just use that shape, and she's like tall and slim, so this is why mantis is also tall and slim, right? Um, are any of these pieces topology ready or just sculpt? Well, I mean, they have topology. Um, I have to reverse what I did here. Just give me a sec. So if you look at the like the mesh have like a certain topology, but the topology it doesn't account for like everything. Like you see the edge detail, they just appear in like a certain amount of subdivision. So it's just like they have a topology, but it's really just to facilitate the sculpting. It's not a topology that I would be using to bake or anything. I would need to retopo this. Also, did you do any concept, or it's just free-handed with the sense of the character design you built yourself over the year? Well, like I said, for the insectoids, it's basically the latter. But sometimes for some characters, I'll do like a little concept and like a little rough concept. Like for example, for the harbingers, so the four horsemen that I just shown, like I can show you like a little like experimentation that I did before. Where is it? Ref. Uh, So it's like it's really small, but like I just did like a couple of like small like silhouette just to get my like get a few ideas, and it's really not much. Like sometimes you can do like 50 thumbnails and stuff, and but like for me, I actually like kind of like already had an idea in my head, so I knew I could go like really quickly to 3D, but I just wanted to have like a quick like idea of like whether they would be an ensemble, right? So I just like drew a couple of things. And I also did a couple of like little sketches of like what could be their mounts, to find the good mounts for all of them, and some idea of like the composition. Um, some of them like I knew already what I was going for. Like death, I didn't do a lot of experimentation because it was pretty clear in my head already. And so yeah, a couple of like silhouettes for their weapons, basically. And then at the bottom here is just like a ton of reference to kind of like get like an idea in my head of like what I was going for the surface treatment or like the visual language, that sort of stuff. And then at the end, it's kind of like a sum up of everything. So yeah, sometimes I do stuff like that, but for the insectoid, I was really just trying to like do like what comes naturally. So yeah, I went straight to 3D for this one. Sure, if it's a style, right? Yeah, and the triad too sometimes. Famine's my favorite. Yeah, cool. Thanks. I feel like famine might be like the least favorite of people, but like I super love like his like gesture and his dynamism and his creepiness and stuff. So I appreciate you saying that. It explains a lot and more. I really appreciate it. Hey, no problem. Also, I should hit up the Intel factory. Yes, exactly. Tell them Marco sent you. Do you ever play with kid bashes? Just for like you see like stuff like that. Like this was a kid bash piece because I didn't really care about doing a joint, but there's like very few kid bash on this character. There are parts that are reused from other of my models, like this one. But I try to not like use kid bash too much, just for like maybe some like little mechanical piece or some filler pieces. But I don't want Kid Bash to dictate my design. Oh, nice. You did the Batman and Joker for Prime 1. Yes, I did the Batman Viking or whatever his name is, Metal Batman, and a Sea Serpent Joker. Yeah, that was a cool piece to do. Um, oh, yeah, you saw it in Tokyo? Yeah, that's nice. I haven't seen it in real life yet, but I bet it's pretty cool. I saw some pictures and I really liked it. I hate to imagine how you keyed that. Oh, it's not me that keyed it. It was somebody else. Like I key my own characters when I print them for myself, but usually, like I'll be honest, at the price that I charge, like usually people want to key it by like a technician, not by an artist. So yeah. Plus, like I'm sure that like technicians are faster than me, so it's just like a more cost effective to have like the artist not engineer the model. But I do work in a pretty clean way so that like the engineers afterwards don't have like too much of a shit job to do, right? Yeah. My voice is getting pretty roachy. I think I need another sip of bourbon. There you go. Nothing nothing better for the voice. Bit of bourbon, little cigar. Sorry about that. There you go. Yeah, I hate keying as well. Have you thought about what your next project will be? Yeah, I have. I have an idea of doing the Just for Laugh mascot. It's just like this So Just for Laugh is, I don't know if I already talked about that. I think I did. Just for Laugh is a comedy festival in Quebec, Montreal, well, Quebec, Canada, where I come from. And there's this little like mascot. Um, I think his name is Victor for some reason. Anyways, and I was thinking of like actually like doing an homage to this character, but like did in my style, right? So this is an idea that I had for a little like relaxation project. But the other idea that I had was doing something a la Elden Ring, because I've just been playing so much Elden Ring these days, and I was thinking of like doing Frog from Chrono Trigger, but in the world of an Elden Ring. Like I like to do mashups. Um, I've been doing a couple of like mashups here and there. Like if you go on my art station, like at the bottom in my links here, Marco's links at the bottom, here. You can go to my art station, and then there's a couple of things that I that are on display here. And there's a part of my stuff is oops, I'll display it correctly here. So yeah, I did a couple of like mashups and stuff. I love doing those, and I might actually do one, like I said, of a frog from Chrono Trigger in the world of Elden Ring, like I did the Zero in the world of Dark Souls, Zero from Mega Man X. I did this whole like Mega Man series, and I really love doing that kind of stuff. Mega Man X4 in the world of Horizon. And yeah, like there's another couple of like things that I did that are pretty like that I really enjoyed. It's like Finn and some like Finn and Jake and BMO in like some wasteland world. So Adventure Time basically. Like this I rendered in ZBrush. Like fully in ZBrush. Like I might actually show a bit of like the composition of this file as well today. This one I like. I really like what I did with Jake. With the little goggles, it really looks like his eyes from the cartoon. And he has such a like a dumb face. I love it. He kind of like has this same expression as like my dog often has. But yeah, oh yeah, and BMO and refurbished Game Boy. So yeah, I really love doing mashups. So I might be doing another mashup for my next series. Bourbon, whiskey, beer, or wine. In order, my favorite is beer. Imperial stouts, or thanks for the follow. Imperial stouts, Scotch ale, and barley wines are my favorite. Oh, porter as well. And then it would be probably whiskey or beer or wine. Probably wine, like a really good like woodsy wine, like Bordeaux or stuff like that. I find that like French wines, they have a lot of like the taste that I'm looking for. Some California wine also I really like, and Italian wines also I really like as well. Then it would be close second would be whiskey. Fucking love whiskey, and bourbon in last place, but still it's in my bests. So yeah. You want to do the green guy? I want to do the green guy. The green guy from where? Oh yeah, the green guy from Just for Laugh. Sorry, I'm kind of like reading that afterwards. He looks like a Victor. Yeah, I know. What a Victor. Wait, no way. I share the same name as the green. Just like okay, there we go. Can we see these ZBrush to see how you broke the parts down? Sorry, can you say in precision what model you're talking about? I would love to see Victor Brigade Brawler Unit ZBrush. This is one of my favorite characters. Everything is so perfect. Merci, SKR. I could open it afterwards. I just want to get to like what I was going to show, but like at some point I'll show it afterwards. Just remind me. I second the Victor Brigade. I absolutely love that character. Thanks. All right, well, let me just go through that, and maybe I can open the file afterwards and just show like how I rendered it and modeled it, whatever. So yeah, because like this one I want to show here it's pretty simple because KeyShot already gave me pretty much like everything that I needed. So I'll just start from scratch here. All right. So basically this is the background. The background is pretty much like the image of the HDRI from KeyShot with like a Gaussian blur on top. So this is like the image from KeyShot. Gaussian blur applied, fixed some stuff, added shadows so that the background is not so like visual, like apparent. Boosted the levels, boosted the colors a bit, some more levels, and this is pretty much like the background that I'm using. If I add the character, so I'm actually using just like the clown pass and the actual render of my character. These are the only passes that I use. I'll deactivate all my things one by one. All right, so this is just me removing a few lights in the background, adding like a spotlight under the character to justify like how bright she is compared to the background. Then you have the character that's added. So this is like really the raw render from a KeyShot. So you see that the materials are already doing a lot of the work here. After that, what I do is like, because since I have a lot of material on this character, I rendered for like 7 hours or something, and it's still like not, it's still pixelated in some areas. Like if you look at the metal here, it's kind of like grainy, and that's not intentional. So what I do is I actually add a layer of like denoising, like reduce noise, like noise here. You have reduce noise. So you can see that like before and after, it kind of like removes the noise, but it kind of like also removes like too much details. So I add a mask to make sure that it's just in specific areas. So you see like now it's just like here and it's not acting anywhere else. Afterwards, I have a layer for some like manual fixes, and like in case I see something that looks bad, I'm just going to manually fix it, but it's very minor. That I actually added like a texture pass because I thought that like it needed like a bit more extra like variation and like chaos. Very light, but if you look before and after, it's just adding a little bit more like noise. Then what I'll do is like I often do this for like the bottom of the character. I try to actually add some colors of the ground. I add it on the character just to kind of like blend the character with the ground a little bit more. So you see it's kind of like just adding some color, like some of the blue like on the character here. And then the next ones are just basically to like brighten some areas that maybe are too like dark right now. So you see like the head here, it's just an overlay layer. Then the next layer is all about like the lights and stuff. It's pretty simple. Like the eyes, they're already lit in KeyShot, but like I just add like a little like bloom to them, and the same goes for like this light here. I'm just adding a little like bloom, outer glow to them. And here I have like I have flare lights. I basically just like found a flare on Photoshop on Google, and I just used it and tweaked it until I have what I need. Like you see, this was pretty much like the flare unaltered, and I just added like some modifiers here so it's not just so crazy. And where there's light, I added a bit of like dust. It's very subtle, but it's just adding a little bit of like moving dust here. Afterwards, I add some bloom. Some bloom is basically I'm just like copying this entire image. I'm boosting the levels so it becomes like, so this is like the merged image. So I had like this layer here to kind of like see only the highlights. Then I blur it. Then I add another layer of levels to brighten it even more. And when you put it in linear add, it blurs the entire image like this. Sorry, it blooms it. So then you just find like the right amount of like opacity, and it just like adds a little like extra like atmospheric lighting thing. And then I copy merge this entire image, and I blur it really intensely at 123, and I just keep it in normal, and I put it to like 5% or something, just so that like all the colors that exist on the image are kind of like spreading all around the image, just to kind of like blend everything together. I find it helps a little bit. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then the next layer is just like some levels, some grain. Like it's really subtle. It's just like basically the levels here. That's what's doing most of the job here. So like a photo filter just to unify like some blue here, unifies everything. Then a color, a color balance to add some like yellow in the lights, yellow and red in the lights, and some blue and cyan in the shadows. Thanks for the follow. This is just a brightness layer, a level layer, and another level layer on top until like it's just like me tweaking until I have what I'm looking for. And yeah, and then that's it. That's pretty much what it is. I always have like other images on top to compare, like to see like the difference. Make sure that it stays like somewhat of the same calibration as the others. Yep. And yeah, then that's done. It is Dunzo. Dunzo, Washington.